Hello, welcome to Monday. It's my name is Tom Carnell. This is Carnell Knowledge, a show in which every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we talk about some movies, some books, and some music. I do a lot of recommendations / reviews depending on the quality of the things that I saw during the past week, or some of the things that hit my mind that we should talk about. Background on me: I was a buyer for Tower Records, Record Factory and Warehouse for about 20 years. I wrote and published Carpet Nocta magazine, which was a dark art publication back in the 90s. And then from 2000 to about 2014 or so, I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central. I did a bunch of podcasting afterwards. And now I write short stories and novels. Go to my Amazon page, you can find all of that stuff. The criteria of what gets covered is basically, again, things I dearly love, things that I've come across that have kind of slipped through the cracks, and things that I think people should know about. I try to keep it to things that titles that people aren't talking about on other shows of this sort of ilk. Again, in the description of this video, you will find links to trailer films, sometimes full movies. You will find Amazon page links, and you will also find, for the records, full YouTube playlists. So you can go ahead, don't just take my word for it, go ahead and go there, listen for yourself, and decide if it's something you want to add to your collection. If you have anything you want to talk about, please comment below. And if it's something you want to take offline, go ahead and email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. Okay, so with that all done, let's get to the movies. Again, these are sometimes they're reviews, sometimes they're recommendations. It gets jumbled. The first film is from 1945. It's called The Vampire's Ghost, directed by Leslie Selander. It stars John Abbott, who is in the musical Gigi, Charles Gordon, and Peggy Stewart. The synopsis is as follows. In a small African port, a tawdry bar is run by a man named Webb Fallon. That's a great name. Fallon is actually a vampire, but he's becoming weary of his life over the past 100 years. This is an odd vampire film in that it's set in Africa, and the goings-on don't necessarily adhere to what we all would consider classic vampire lore. It's oddly, I mean, from all indications, this should completely blow. Instead, it's actually quite an interesting little vampire film. It's odd and quirky, but it's wholly satisfying. The main actor, John Abbott, is great as the vampire. This sort of, long before Louis and Lestat and this sort of, hand on the back of the forehead kind of woe is me vampire, this guy nailed it, and this was 1945. Far better than it should be, far better than I expected it to be. So imagine my surprise when I sat down by about the 15-minute mark. I was like, okay, this is great stuff. And again, you never hear anyone talk about it. I'm a fan, as your longtime viewers of this channel will attest, to things off the beaten track in the sense that either genre pass through a cultural lens, or a property that takes something that we think we know and then turns it on its head. In this case, by lifting it out of the old Gothic castles and dropping it into African villages, it changes the whole dynamic of the entire film. And it's great. And it's fairly short. You can find it on YouTube, and it's great. Great stuff. The Vampire's Ghost. After that, 1964, a film called Nightmare. It's directed by Freddie Francis. Longtime Hammer fans will recognize that name. He directed things like Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, Torture Garden, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Trog. He directed Tales from the Crypt and Tales That Witness Madness. It stars David Knight, Moira Redmond, who was in A Shot in the Dark, and Jenny Linden, who was in Doctor Who and the Daleks. The synopsis: a young woman is plagued by nightmares by her asylum patient mother. Upon returning to her family home, the nightmares become real when she sees the strange woman wandering the halls. This is very at once, it's very familiar to Hammer fans, and it's also very different. It's an obscure little Hammer film that no one ever seems to talk about. Once again, it seems to be a theme here. During the production, the working title was, "Here's the knife, dear, now use it." Found very amusing. It's handled really well. Freddie Francis is a consummate pro with solid acting and production. The plot is nothing you won't see coming down Main Street. Think kind of diabolique, kind of vibe to it. But again, it's all handled with dexterity in a journeyman's hand, and it's a fun, even though it is a little predictable on the side. The main actress is great. She mostly just screams through the entire thing. But everything is suitably menacing. It's got that black and white Hammer feel to it. And I found myself once again enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. I plugged in thinking, all right, obscure Hammer film, and very rarely am I surprised by those. They're usually obscure for a very good reason. But this one was great. Again, Nightmare, 1964. Again, you can find it on YouTube for absolutely nothing. Let's see. Lately, I've been going through a jag of Mexican horror films. There's a real cool vibe to them. In some cases, they're like Hammer films. In some cases, they're not. But all in all, they have, again, their cultural or their genre tropes pass through that sort of prism of culture, and sometimes they can be great. This film is from 1961. It's called El Mundo de los Vampiros, or The World of Vampires. It's directed by Alfonso Corona Black, who is responsible for things like Santo in the Wax Museum, Santo versus the Vampire Women, which I'm sure we've all seen. It was riffed on MST3K. Stars Guillermo Murray, Sylvia Fournier, and Mauricio Garces, who is in the classic Mexican horror film The Brainiac. This is about a vampire who uses two sisters to seek revenge upon the last member of a family that persecuted them, other vampires in Europe. Oddly, it uses music as a weapon against vampires. A certain melody is played, and the vampires shrink as if it were a crucifix. The film is decidedly set-bound in that you can tell they're not filming on location. It's very sort of stage set, which is sometimes indicative of a lot of Mexican horror. Features some great papier-mâché bats on strings that basically just hover and sort of do one of these things and squeak a lot, and some great over-the-counter rubber masks. The plot is thin. The proceedings are kind of silly. I mean, not a lot of it makes sense here. But all of the male monsters, again, clearly are wearing rubber masks, and the women are all dressed up for some reason to resemble Nina Hagen. So there you go. I don't think that was by choice. Most of the laws regarding vampires don't apply here, and all in all, it's kind of a mess. And it's not a particularly good example of Mexican horror, but it's kind of fun. I gotta admit, it's kind of fun. There's a lot of glaring, a lot of arched eyebrows going on in this. But again, there's enough there to hang your hat on, and it's a fun little time waster. Moving on to 1941. This is something I never even knew existed. It's called The Devil Commands. It's directed by Edmund Timitrick, who directed The Caine Mutiny, and Richard Burton as Bluebeard. The Caine Mutiny. Are we getting this? It stars Boris Karloff, Anne Revere, and Amanda Duff. It's about a scientist who is obsessed with the idea of communicating with his dead wife. It's based on a book by William Sloane called The Edge of Running Water. Kind of cool. Karloff does a great arc from loving husband to bereaved widow to complete bonkers science. effortlessly, and you never question it for a second. Opens on some really great miniatures that kind of surprised me. It's a pretty standard role for Karloff, which saves the film. I mean, no one does Descent into Madness quite like Karloff. The medium that he hooks up with that sort of helps him in his endeavors is played by Anne Reeves, and she's great. Just kind of stoic and scary and ruthless. And you can tell that she's a character that has had some hard bumps in life. And so she gets his grip, a little bit of a grip on some power and some affluence, and kind of really runs with it. The voiceover by the daughter, played by Amanda Duff, compels you immediately, and you're immediately on board for what's to follow. The plot is a little familiar, and the science is exceedingly iffy, but it was the 40s, and so, you know, a couple of blinking lights and some electricity, and it passed for cutting edge technology. Overall, the film is a fine little scientific potboiler. It's worth seeing, especially for fans of this era of filmmaking, but also of Karloff and that kind of mad scientist sort of vibe. And then finally, this is my pick of the week. 1941 again. It's called The Face Behind the Mask. It's directed by Robert Florey. Stars Peter Lorre, who was in M, Maltese Falcon, Casablanca. Evelyn Keyes, who was in The 7-Year Itch, Gone with the Wind. Don Bideau, who was in Night of the Hunter and The Best Years of Our Lives. Man, this one really surprised me. I love this movie. Peter Lorre plays a disfigured watchmaker with a grudge against society and who embarks on a life of crime. It's kind of part noir, part horror film, part social drama. Gives off some major Universal monster vibes. Lorre just kills it here. The arc of his character, and at first he's sort of this befuddled foreigner who barely speaks the language, who comes over to America on the boat with the idea that he'll make his fortune and send for his fiancée back in Hungary. He is an expert watchmaker and an expert sort of guy with his hands. He's just really, really good. And the turn from that to this sort of crime boss to this guy who's just meting out his revenge is fantastic. The direction is great, remarkable. I don't know why this doesn't get talked about. In Lorre discussions, it never gets talked about. In genre discussions, it never gets talked about. But the idea that he is this dude early on, he's staying at a kind of flop house, and a guy is cooking in his room and inadvertently starts a fire that destroys the building, but also traps Lorre inside and burns him pretty extensively in his face and his body. But luckily his hands remain able and adept. Afterwards, he can't get a job because he goes in for a watchmaker job, and they take one look at him and they want nothing to do with him. One thing leads to another. He meets up with a guy, and they end up embarking on some petty crime. And that grows to a bigger sort of organization, which runs sort of against the guy who previously ran the organization, and then there's some conflict there. Again, an outstanding film. You can find the entire film on YouTube, and holy mackerel. This was something that I was A, completely surprised at, and B, absolutely loved. It quickly became top 5 Peter Lorre films of all time, if not my favorite Peter Lorre film of all time. And that's a bold statement. So check that out, The Face Behind the Mask. Moving on to our book of the week. I only have a copy of this as an audiobook, and it's got a real plain cover, but it's Doug Stanhope's Digging Up Mother. If you know Doug Stanhope, he is a stand-up comedian, And in my opinion, he is an American treasure. He's crass, he's drunk, but he's utterly insightful. His comedy it's honest and it's fantastic and it's cutting. And I am a huge fan. This has to do with his life, and the cornerstone of the book is his mother, who has an illness. I think it's cancer. But there's a whole big chunk of the book that talks about his aiding her in assisted suicide, and it is honest and it is brutal. The cool thing about this audiobook is that there's supplemental material. There's interviews. There's things that aren't in the print book. So this is the preferred version to get. It's narrated by Doug. I've seen Doug a couple of times. He's fantastic as a stand-up, but this book really made me rethink a lot of what the man is as both an artist and as a person. You can find some of the assisted suicide thing. I think it's on Beer Hall Push, which is one of his stand-up specials. But see them all. I think they're great. And there's a great, crazy video out there. It's filmed in Austin. Doug Stanhope gets Alex Jones to open for him, and it is a disaster. But it's one of the most compelling disasters you've ever seen. The crowd becomes argumentative and riotous, and yeah, great stuff. I am a guy who, Doug has a couple of other books out, and again, sight unseen, if I see one that comes out, I'll immediately buy it. Just a fantastic kind of a drunk Will Rogers in a weird way. If you're with me on that one. But again, Digging Up Mother, absolutely fantastic. Moving on to our records for the week. Let's see, our first one, the band is called Fools. The album is called Fool's Harp Volume 1. It's from 2020. They're a band from Brooklyn, New York, led by Christopher Bear, who was the drummer for a band I'd never heard of called Grizzly Bear. He's a multi-instrumentalist. It's all recorded solo. It's just him, mostly through improvisation. It's ambient music, or what they used to call sound baths, if you're with me on that. Just music or sound that sort of washes over you and creates a sense of calm. He plays vibraphone, kalimba, omnichord. It's all interwoven into soundscapes. What can I tell you? It's great. It's really good. Perfect for late night, perfect for early morning. Reminded me of the band ARP and of Hiroshi Yoshimura, who's a solo, again, another multi-instrumentalist. Absolutely fantastic. Again, go in the description, go to the YouTube link. It'll take you to a playlist of the entire album, and you can see for yourself. After that, let's see. Hugo Fattoruso doing a record called Ye Barrio Opa from 2018. He's a Uruguayan musician-composer, has been working in the field since about 1950s. This record encompasses jazz, rock, candombe, which is a deeply rooted Uruguayan music and dance tradition, has some funk in it, has some fusion in it. The Hugo Fattoruso he originated a band in the 60s called Los Shakers, and he backed everyone from Airto Morieri, Flora Purim, Milton Nascimento, Hermeto Pascal, Javon, and Egberto Gismonti. He won a Latin Grammy. He's won numerous awards. This is very hip, very full of life and expression. And it sounds very, very South American. I really dug this record. It's a little unlike what I'm usually playing. But again, slapped it on, hit repeat after the first or second song, and enjoyed a whole afternoon. I was just really enjoying this. Let's see, up next, The band is called Maisha, Maisha. The album is called There Is a Place. It's from 2018. This is on their press kit. They called it Grist for Spiritual Rumination. And there you go. Six-piece band led by Jake Long. They supported at one point Sun Ra Orchestra. Are you getting the vibe there? Heady jazz with a distinct beat. Intricate and intellectual, very lush. The record reminded me a lot of Alice Coltrane, Pharoah Sanders, Nubia Garcia, Yusef Days, and a fairly new band called Nubian Twist. All of those people are fantastic, and this Maisha group is really great. They've got a couple of records out, and you can check them out either on Spotify or elsewhere on YouTube. Two more to go. From 2019, the band is called Ronin Arkestra. Not orchestra, but Arkestra, Arkestra. Tokyo-based new jazz collective founded in 2017. Spiritual jazz fusion with electronic beats, ambient grooves, very in the moment music. It's not improvised, but it sounds kind of improvised. Can get a little noodly if you're with me on that. A little like dissonant and look what I learned at Berklee School of Music. But it's fantastic. It's very free flowing. Very cool, very, very, very enjoyable. Reminded me of things like Takuya Kuroda, the band Sleepwalker, Sun Ra, and the band Mouse on the Keys. If any of those ring bells, if not, check those guys out because those guys are great too. I thoroughly enjoyed this record. It came upon my desk sort of by happenstance, but it was another one that I put on and immediately hit replay a time or two, and still go back to it now and again. And then our final record, the artist is Robert Scott Thompson. He's an American composer. The album is called AMOR FATI, from 2026. It's just brand new, came out about a week or two ago. It's ambient, electronic, very organic sounding. Synthesizer washes, shimmering elements, and soundscapes, if you're with me. Robust sequencing, and it's almost danceable, but I mean, don't think disco, but there's a beat to it that you can sort of bop with, even though it is mostly, like I say, soundscapes and aural, A-U-R-A-L, landscapes. Reminded me of a host of people. And once I go through this issue, you'll get the vibe a little better. Art of Noise, Kraftwerk, the more sedate moments of Kraftwerk. Steve Roach, Klaus Schultz, Brian Eno, Altus, Max Corbacho, Patrick O'Hearn, and Larry Fast and Synergy. Good stuff all the way around. Thoroughly enjoyable. Again, go to the description. You can hear all of it for yourself. Just really, really cool. And very, very much a like sort of end of day record. And that is going to do it for a Monday. Again, if you would do me a favor, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Please share it all to your social media. That really helps a lot. I will be back on Wednesday. I got a whole host of things to talk to you about then. I just did last Sunday, I dropped an episode called Time in the Chair. It has to do with expertise and online expertise, and how to put in your own filter when you hear people recommending things or talking about things, and how expertise happens. And it gives a little bit more background into how my coming up and how my views on certain things. I'm going to be doing a lot of that kind of stuff, just dropping what I'm going to call like afternoon specials during the weekend. I've got a host of topics that I'm going to be talking about. Just doing top 15, top 20s of different genres in all three of our categories, movies, books, and music. I appreciate you. I appreciate you tuning into the channel. So again, thank you for that. And again, smash that like and subscribe button. And other than that, we will see you on Wednesday.